Not too bad. for Canfield, looking at that agreement that Kevin drafted for the,
Your, our, Act 7 agreement?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something, well, I wasn't at the last meeting.
But is that something really for,
Really not this group.
South Central, that, or that's really up
Probably
for the
more
group that's meeting, because there's non-members there?
Yeah. And I would think that, and
Yeah, I think
plus,
that's right.
let's sort of see if people are receptive before we spend legal money, but up
Yeah.
to you guys. Thanks
So-
for asking, Jim.
Tom, do we need to do a roll call?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, it's on, yeah. Tricia, would you do a roll call?
We need to add that.
Like,
Member Bud,
Here,
Member Cornish,
Present.
Under financial.
Member Mackey,
Here,
Member Mathis,
here.
and Member Tarkowitz.
Here. Thank you, Trish. Thank you, Dave. All right,
Hey, Tom, we also need to add a potential budget revision.
okay.
Baker Tilly audit.
So we will add J. Budget adjustment for audit, is that? Okay, thanks, Tom. Okay, so I guess based on that, any other additions for the agenda?
You need a motion?
I need a motion.
Sure. Clinton will make the motion.
Hillsdale will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. We next have approval of minutes for November 4th.
Clinton will make a motion to approve the minutes from November 4.
Union City will support.
Any changes or amendments to it? All in favor, say aye. Approve the minutes of November 4th.
Aye.
Opposed? We have approval of minutes. Okay, finance report. Welcome to back to Michigan, Tom. We'll let you in, I guess. But we won't say a whole lot to you. I know what you would be saying to us, so.
So we're not gonna say it to him also? No, that's kind of the game Saturday. You don't think he would let you slide, so why would he let him slide?
I love to slide past it.
See, Tom, that's why you get that tire.
There it is.
Get it when you can. You might only get to do this once every 10 years.
This is my last chance to do it, so I would have, so, unless I come back next year for something. Tom, please.
Okay, and then a whole lot to report this month. One thing I did want to point out is, we received a notification from ITC that in February of 2021 peak hour change. So the peak hour that they originally provided to us was February 15th, hourly 19, and change hourly 10.
Look at that.
And the reason there's been changes in smaller changes in fire months, but this is significant, mostly for cold water. In-house load during that. So I did put an estimate of what I need adjustment. Mostly a credit for several cold water folks. Meeting with IT. It's not ideal.
Did they say why it took so long?
Their comment is that they were going back and forth. So it sounds like part of their process is power that was
And you say they can go back up to a year?
Well, so they said I don't think they can go back up to 2 years. Yeah, I think
And obviously, he said they usually try and settle it within the month after, but in this case, consumers, it sounded like was debating or arguing with them that the peak was the 15th at 7 PM or 9 PM as opposed to 9th at 9 AM.
So
So,
consumers gets basically a seat at the table in determining the hour, and whatever's determined at that table, then we have to live with.
I mean, it's all speculation, but like I told Tom earlier, I imagine that consumers is such a high percentage of the load that they probably typically go by whatever consumers' peak load was that month. And in this case, consumers kept saying peak load is the 15th at 9. And then as they started proofing that, they kept thinking, oh, it looks like it was the 9th at 9. And then, so,
even if they could notify us sometimes if a month is in dispute, if they could tell us earlier than waiting until it's settled and say, hey, we're going back and forth, that would be very helpful. Because then at least we could let our customers, notify our customers that there could potentially be a change in that month. So to be prepared and kind of say, hey, what's between this date and this date, and if it's this date, it's this. I'm sure they know when there's a problem.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
if those past 9 months, they didn't find out.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
we did talk about a follow-up meeting as well. There was some confusion over our transmission entitlement and how that gets billed to us or whether it should be billed to us. So Tom was going to look at some of the original agreements or language, and then we're going to touch base again. Tom suggested that maybe we just reach out to Daryl directly rather than going with the other people that seem to be less familiar and sympathetic towards our customer relations.
Yeah.
So,
Would it be helpful, I'm assuming that there's going to be an adjustment in a bill with a credit to us and a charge to Coldwater. It would be a little harsh if that happens all at once. Is there a way that could be done over a few months? Because I mean, I'm getting a credit. I don't care if I get it over 1 month or 5 months. It doesn't matter to me. But would that be helpful to you if it was done a little slower?
No, I mean, for us, we just need to know. It's mostly a core billing thing. It's not that they caught it, and it's how we bill to our customers.
I know.
And so that's the only thing that's different, because
It's-
we got to go back to our customers and say, hey, you owe us $25,000 9 months ago, and if it would have been somebody else, it could have been $150,000, and that's a hard discussion to have.
I know, and that's why I thought if it could be phased in, I could care less whether I get it in 1 month or 6 months.
No, it has nothing to do with the money.
Okay.
Yeah, that's irrelevant. It's more going back to our customer and informing them.
Jeff, to your power supply cost adder, is that over
6 months.
6 months, 3 months?
We have a 1 month rolling
1
average.
month. Okay, so your customers will see it immediately then?
They will see it immediately.
Well, that's why I thought if you phased it, it'd be easier on them, but that's up to you.
Yeah,
I'm more than willing.
no, that has really no bearing on it. It's more and I appreciate the offer, it's the time of use customers, because what they pay in transmission is what their percentage of of that cost related just to them. So if they can save money by missing that transmission peak. But if they were running when that transmission peak, they pay it. So they cause us to pay it, and so that's how they can save money.
And that's hard because you got to pass that on to them
Yeah.
directly. With us,
Right.
we don't have hourly billing, so with us, it would just be
Yeah.
absorbed in
Right.
the bill that month
Yeah.
that was given to us. Okay.
Yeah, so
for you-
it's just more the customer side. It's not,
Okay.
100,000 is no big deal, or 200,000 is a big deal on our power bill in general, so that doesn't really make any difference. But it's more one customer paying 200,000, that's gonna be
That's
an issue, yeah.
Well, it's just a perspective thing, because to me, that's more than my whole bill.
Yeah. I wish my bill was that, Kevin.
I know. Yeah, Chris and I, ours is
Yeah, I know,
small.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
This solely though affects each agency independently, right? There's nothing that changes. The change in the peak doesn't charge the group, or it doesn't affect the group other than each agency independently, right? Or is there
I mean, I guess that might be a good question. MPPA, I don't know what hour they submitted their peak on.
okay.
Um, they could have submitted on the same hour and then received a similar notification.
I mean, it does impact your bill. Is that what you were questioning?
But I mean, like each of us independently, it affects each of us differently independently, right? I noticed the differences here. I mean, there's
Depending on what
no,
your peak was
yeah.
between those 2
The
hours.
change in this affects each of us independently of the other, right? Then,
Yes.
in other words, so there's no group effect that, I was just curious how that.
And this way it worked out in your benefit, so you're
Right,
getting
right.
credit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
So your
So
peak
you're
hour,
happy.
your peak
Yes.
hour may change a little bit depending on the new hour. But
Okay.
then since Coldwater's peak was significantly higher, because of the transmission sharing rate that you have within the agency, that's probably where a lot of this credit comes from.
Got you, okay, thank you.
And your 2 o'clock load could have been a little lower, plus your hydro could have been a little higher and offset it, so
Right.
it's just a guessing game.
Now, our load was affected solely by the greenhouse. They were off on the 19th at hour 17, and they were on
The new peak.
the new peak.
So I will follow up with them and notify them if it's in dispute, to give us a heads up if they can.
Yeah.
So, other than that,
Can I ask a question? So they're gonna bill the agency in December?
so it goes through MISO.
Okay.
So they'll resubmit that new peak hour data to MISO, and I think it'll be on next month's bill. So
January.
The bill that we get in January.
Okay.
When this happened 2 months ago, I thought it was gonna be on a 2-month lag, but then it came 1 month later. I think it depends on the timing. This is later in the month when they made this correction, so.
Thank you.
anything else on finance report?
I think that is all.
Okay. Need approval of the October 2021 financial statements and investment report.
So moved, Coldwater.
Clinton will support that motion.
Any questions, comments for Tom? Okay, you got a motion to support. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have approval of the October 21 invoices.
Clinton will make that motion.
Hillsdale will second.
Any questions about the invoices?
The question I had is the Wolverine payment, is that from Union City for Union
Yes.
City stuff?
Yeah, it's the Wolverine bills MSCPA $8,000 a month for Union City's capacity. And it's a pass-through to Union City each month.
Yeah, it's how much a month?
8,000.
Yes. Thank you.
I thought he said 1,000.
I did too, that's
Sorry.
why.
I like 1,000 better.
8,000.
Okay, we have a motion and support for approval of the October 21 invoices. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on, was Katie on?
She's on.
She's on.
She's on. Hi, Katie.
Hello. Ooh, there we
How
go.
are you, Katie?
Good, how are you?
Good, you're up. You're live.
All right, thank you for having me this morning. This is really short and sweet, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. But the biggest legislative thing that we're working on right now is the amendment to Public Act 448, That was the act that created the joint action agencies in Michigan to amend that act to allow more flexibility in how we can conduct our meetings through the joint action agency like you're having right now. This would impact MPPA as well. As you all know, the way the law is, it's very, it's not flexible at all. We have to meet in person if you want to participate, be part of the quorum and vote. So we have been working this really hard to get this passed. So the good news is we have passed the Senate Bill 633 out of the full Senate, and it is now in the House Energy Committee, which is really good news because we've already had a committee hearing in the House Energy Committee on the identical bill that is sponsored on the House side by Representative Slaw. And Chairman Bellino is planning to vote that out, I think maybe as early as his next committee meeting. So as soon as we get that voted out on the House side, then that'll go through for a vote for the full House. We may have a little bit of work to do there. We're going to just have to kind of whip the members and see if we have the votes. If not, I'm definitely going to be mobilizing some of our members to reach out to their state representatives and explain why this is important. But it came through close to unanimous on the Senate side. So I'm optimistic about what we'll see on the House. But we have the same bill in a House version and a Senate version just to cover ourselves if something goes odd along the way. I like to say at this legislative process, there's a bunch of little landmines that you have to navigate and can pop up. But so far, fingers crossed, we're moving through the process. So I have to caution this, we could get this all the way to the governor's desk and she could veto it to make a point. She's been very vocal about asking the legislature to amend the entire Open Meetings Act and not do these one-offs. But we have some good relationships in the governor's office that we're going to utilize and try to express to her that she should not use us in that way. Please do not make an example out of us, pick on somebody else. So I'll keep you updated as we move through this process. But right now I'm optimistic. That's the biggest piece of legislation we're watching that's actually moving right now. And I'm happy to take any other questions that you may have.
Hey, Katie, on that law, and I reached out to Congressman Representative Slaw after the meeting. So I actually know him personally. So if that is ever something to be played, let me know. That helps. I know he's right for it, so.
Yeah, he's actually the sponsor of the bill, Jeff, on the House side. So he's been tremendous. So he is sponsoring it. He was with us in committee and testified in support of it. So we were sitting up there and he's been terrific.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah. Not a
And
politician.
on this issue in particular, it's really helpful to have the more conservative members supporting this because they tend to be the ones who want to stay very conservative, if you will, in how the Open Meetings Act is utilized. So it's very helpful to have him understand our perspective and how we're different than most of the other groups.
Any other questions from the board? Well, thank you, Katie.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to Pam and General Manager's report.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Scott to go through generation.
Thank you. More road projects for October has been better than a year, better than previous year, about 140 hours generation from the facility. The Tech combined cycle project had a good October, better than original projections and better than budget. Capacity factor about 69. About 81%. That's why we did also successfully. Hydro again. October was better than projection. Passing factors in the table. First graph being the October, and the second graph being the year-to-date. Project. Did the budget projection.
Scott, and the spring was okay this year? Because I know you have high water issues, but spring wasn't too bad?
Very favorable water.
Because we've had enough of the high water ones in the spring recently.
State project also October, not for them, better than the forecast. Better than the budget. October availability. Project for the solar, solar project. Megawatt hours in October, slightly below the. Positive side, year to date. Better than. Our 15 is,
Thanks, Scott. I do want to point out one thing. We did do the gas prepay for AFEC that we began taking delivery on November 1st. And then we were actually able to transact another gas prepay earlier this week, which will begin delivery in April of next year. So that's,
You seen gas prices change at all?
gas has been plummeting down this week,
Good.
just because of, last
What?
few warmer forecast.
Oh,
Primarily. Last
news.
couple days, it's gone down 60 cents, I think, so.
so the power supply market has come down too?
A little bit, but not a whole lot.
Not yet.
Comes down.
Not yet?
Yeah, not yet. I think Chris is on, go through MISO here quickly. I know, Chris, I think you've got 2 meetings you're doing, so are you available?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, so going over MISO, MISO held re-elected, the stakeholders of MISO re-elected 3 of the current board members. 2 are on their 3rd term and 1 is in the 2nd term. The capacity accreditation, pretty much everything here is as it was when the board report was written. As of now, MISO has actually filed the new proposal. They filed it on November 30th. So they met their no later than December 1st deadline that they were talking about. So at this point, we've got 2 separate filings. One is 1,200 pages and the other's was 500 or 600 pages long. So at this point, it's just going through to see and verify that the tariff language is, what was described in the stakeholder process, and then picking the parts that we want to protest. At this point, protests are due December 21st. There are different stakeholder groups talking about filing and requesting an extension of the normal FERC comment period to try to push it out to at least a 30-day, if not a 60-day comment period, especially because, as MISO had said, they want to implement it for the 2023-2024 capacity years. That begins June 1 of 2023. So there is some time, but then MISO's trying to push it. They don't, they want a decision sooner than later on this. The next subject I put in here is more just kind of like an FYI thing. MISO is doing this regional resource assessment, which is looking at the fleet change and how different resources perform. And one of the things in the report that I thought was interesting was MISO has this thing called an effective load carrying capability. It's actually a way to measure the energy production value of a unit, how often it will be around when you need it. that's been developed and used other places, and they're all different kinds of flavors of this ELC. They call it ELCC. But anyway, MISO provided a look at what they thought various intermittent resources would provide by season out in 2040. And so what I did is I included in there, so the wind currently uses an ELCC. So this is, a good, at least the best thing that we've seen as far as any kind of projection has gone on that. And then currently solar and battery do not use ELCC. They just have a different kind of performance measure. So this is kind of I saw it as a decent first look at what solar combined with battery and then standalone battery might provide. And you can see the values, it just had percentages by season. So if you were considering that, especially hosting a battery or solar or combination of the two, it's a decent guess as to what they might provide. Moving on from that, MISO has been engaged in a thing they call long-range transmission plan. This is a new type of transmission expansion project. It's very similar to the thing that they already have called the multi-value project. The only difference is multi-value project is supposed to be across the whole footprint. But since they've expanded the footprint, when they brought in Entergy in MISO South, they haven't had any of these. And there's a lot of, I'd say, disagreement or consternation over having such a project because, if you build it in the Midwest footprint, people in the MISO South are saying, well, it's not really benefiting me. And of course, if you're building it in the MISO South area, the Midwest is saying it doesn't really benefit me. So MISO, for this long-range transmission plan, they are kind of keeping the multi-value project thing. And they are splitting it so that if it's in MISO Midwest, that's where the costs will be allocated. If it's in MISO South, that's where those costs will be allocated. And this is, they've been talking about it. We've been getting details over the last couple of years. So we will have to see, they're talking about having a filing. It's been really indeterminate. At one point they say, oh, we're gonna file early December. Then it was middle of December. Then they said by the end of December, maybe early January. And then they put something out that went back to the middle of December. But one of their big things is they really can't start approving any kind of projects, even though they're throwing all this data out there about potential projects that they'd like to see. But they can't really take anything to the board for approval until they get tariff language that says this is a new type of project. And it is obviously the cost will come in over time, but it is a serious amount of money. They're saying that the total package could run, or package, it'll be a bunch of packages over many years, but they're putting it in anywhere from $30 billion to $100 billion. And obviously that would be the capital cost, and those costs will be recovered with return on equity, over a 30 to 50 year period of time. So it's not like it's going to be, everybody's going to owe them 30 to 100 billion in 1 year, but it's a significant increase in the transmission plan. They have described that they're going to be working in tranches. The first tranche is going to focus on the Midwest. They're going to have a second tranche that will happen maybe late 2022, could slip into 2023, that will again look at the Midwest. And then, a year or so later, they're going to turn their focus to MISO South. And then they're going to come back after that, probably in the 25, 26 timeframe, and look at what they would.
Chris, you muted yourself. Somebody muted you. Okay, now you're good.
Okay. And so after they get the Midwest built out and they build out the MISO South, then they're going to come back in a fourth tranche, probably in the 25, 26 timeframe, and look at what they need to do to better interconnect the MISO Midwest and MISO South so that it's not so, right now there's a pretty weak link between the two areas. So, this is something that's going to go on over a long time. Yes.
Chris, are you on your phone?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Is there like a TV on?
Is it- Yeah, you're getting some feedback somehow through your phone.
Probably the other call.
Okay, is that better now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry about that.
thank you.
Moving on from that, looking up to the FERC issues, we now have a 5th commissioner that has been appointed, but he has not been sworn in yet. He comes from the DC Public Service Commission. So we'll have another, essentially state public service commissioner. Willie Phillips was the chair. I guess he is until he gets sworn in at FERC. But so, and we don't know when that's going to happen. That will probably start to move some things through because now we'll have the ability for a 3-2 vote on things. And Chairman Glick will probably start getting some of the initiatives that he wants to move. We also include information on FERC, NERC staff, and the regional entity staff put out a report on the Texas cold weather event from February 2021. Specific note, it didn't just hit Texas. There was also the South Central US. So MISO South was impacted, and so was SPP. But those areas didn't have as bad a time as Texas because they have ties to external areas and could import power. There were 28 recommendations that came out of the report. If somebody would like to see the report, if you let me know, I'll shoot you a copy of it or at least a link to it. Really tried to pare it down and kind of give you some ideas of some of the things they're looking at, but there were many recommendations to expand NERC requirements, create new regulations and such to ensure that resources are capable of operating in cold weather and to set what that cold weather threshold should be. How far down in temperature, how severe weather should you be able to operate? FERC has already set up a technical conference on this. It's set for April 28th of 2022, which some people have pointed out the humor in that it's after the coming winter. So I guess they're hoping that nothing bad's going to happen this winter. Transmission planning, there's an advance notice of proposed rulemaking out. FERC held a technical conference to go with that and then asked for very quick comments on that technical conference. They actually synced it up with reply comments that were due on the ANOPR. So those were due at the end of November, which is only 20 days after the technical conference. The technical conference itself, talked about how should we do future planning? How far out should we go? How much should we try to anticipate where generation is going to be? Obviously, these issues are of interest to us. If somebody, third party, whether it's an RTO or someone else, is looking at and guessing where generation goes and they build it, the generation doesn't come, then there's, a lot of money that, some would say it was a worthwhile spend. I think we would find it to be not worthwhile. FERC is also holding a joint federal state task force. It involves 10 state utility commissioners and then the 5 FERC commissioners. They held their first meeting on November 15th. And then they're also, accepting comments on that. Supposedly there will be more of these task forces and talking about how do you build public policy into transmission planning and how much guessing do you do to decide what to build. And then FERC also in November issued a notice of inquiry asking for comments, and this request for comments was about as open as what the advance notice of proposed rulemaking on transmission planning was. It was just throwing a lot of ideas out there and saying, hey, what does everybody think? Give us your ideas. And it's on reactive power compensation. It's of interest to us because one, as loads, we all pay for reactive power provision from generators, and it's done on a regulated basis. But we also have an interest because projects that the members are in, like the hydros, if you're in Prairie State, if you're in AFEC, they all receive a reactive revenue requirement. They get a regulated payment we went through a process at FERC, established a rate, and they get a certain amount of money every year to be able to produce reactive power to support the grid. So, obviously we have some interest in if there are going to be changes and what those changes are and how that will impact both the resources and what we pay as load serving entities. The last issue we had was just at the November meeting, FERC pointed out, they put out their annual report on enforcement. They provided the numbers of how much, in the last year that they had forced people to disgorge and how much they had charged in civil penalties for market manipulation, and then refunds for tariff audits, where accounting hadn't been handled properly and such. And the big thing that was touted at the FERC meeting was that FERC is being more active now as far as, compared to what they were over the last, say, 4 years or so, as far as trying to enforce market manipulation, anti-market manipulation rules, and enforce accounting for tariff rates. And that is the end of it, if there are any questions.
Kevin, did you have a?
I did have a question. It was back on page 6 of the general manager's report. I was just trying to understand the chart there. It's the page that's got the 2 charts, and it's got the next page, I think. Next page.
Next page up, next page down.
The 6, so it'll be higher, plus 1 page. And then I was just trying to understand, on the right, I see the winter, and I see the solar is the inverted U, or whatever you call it. I guess I'm not sure what I'm looking at, because I know there's a smaller window there. I know the daylight's less, the tilt of the earth is different. There's snow cover. I'm assuming this is like a northern, or it's a Michigan kind of chart. I guess if someone could explain it better. And I don't get why the solar doesn't go higher during the middle of the day in the spring, summer, and fall. I guess I'm not sure what I'm looking at there.
I will have to dig into that and get back to you. Yes, the data behind it. Obviously, I was looking at was what they are saying the percentage of ICAP would be effective load carrying capability, which would set your capacity rating. So if you had 100 megawatts of solar, but yes, I can question them on, hey, we expected the shape to look different than this.
Okay, and that could make sense. It's just the winter one threw me for a loop. I sort of got the others, but I thought, well, why wouldn't they be higher? And then when I saw the winter, I was like, I didn't understand why, but.
Isn't that capacity,
Thank
so
you.
it's lower?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
the winter's showing a lower capacity in the.
Yeah, I know, it's like I get that, because you have shorter daylight, the tilt of the earth's different, so you're not getting quite the intensity. I mean, I get all
It's not as
that.
sunny.
You have snow
And I think
cover.
more cloud cover.
Cloud cover, thank you. I didn't think of that, but you're right, November and December.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking for an exhaustive kind of thing, just a general, don't get carried away with it for me. It was just a quick 2 or 3
Yeah, I think
sentence.
what Chris was pointing out here is on this one right here, like today, cold water, solar gets around 50% capacity values. So its ICAP is about 50% of its total capacity.
Okay,
And when they go to seasonal, I think this was just giving you an idea of what those percentages might look like.
it's gonna drop significantly.
Yes, and
Okay,
then they're gonna, if you average that over the year, where it's around probably 25%, which is
And-
what we've been using in our analysis.
And
okay,
something
that's better. I'm
something-
good with that then, Scott.
Something other to keep in mind with ELCC, effective load carrying capability, as the percentage will go down as more of that type of resource is added to the system. For instance, it would be very difficult to serve the entire amount of load in the footprint with 100% solar. So there's kind of this curve that goes with it, such that there's a sweet spot somewhere in the middle, the operative and unknown term of where the middle is. But as you start getting higher and higher percentages of, your capacity resource capacity being served by a particular type of resource, whether it's wind or solar, the credit that you get for that in capacity will go down, just because, you know, the wind is pretty much blowing all at the same time and the sun is shining pretty much at the same time. You know, as you do get bigger footprint, you know, because MISO extends so far east to west and also north to south, you know, you can get more variability in there. But it's just, I don't want to say it, just kind of looking at the statistics of it, the higher the percentage of resources that particular resource represents, the lower the credit each individual resource will receive.
Okay. Thank you. And then one last question on page 8, when you look at the transmission and you look at the chart on the left, I like the idea where they show a proposed line in tranche 1. I'm assuming it's somewhere around Battle Creek. And I know they're proposing it, but it doesn't mean it'll go. But
Right.
Is it like more favorable than not that it might go in? Because we really need to have more connections in Michigan. We're an island among ourselves in the lower peninsula.
I mean, I'd say it's favorable because they really want to do it. And one thing you can see too is, so like the first 2 maps, those were earlier in the month. And then there's another map that they put out to the MISO South community when they were doing a MISO South meeting, which it's kind of a combination of the 2 maps above. But some of the status of the lines changed, because in the two maps above, and as well as that one, any line that is solid is something that they're pretty much, yeah, we think we're pretty, that we want this is going to be in the LRTP, the long range transmission plan. The dashed ones, they're still building the business case for. So as you can see in the first one, the line that comes up from Indiana into Michigan was dashed. And then a couple of weeks later, it looks to me that they have solidified, or at least believe they've solidified their business case, because that line is now solid.
Oh.
And it does kind of change the termination points a little bit, or I'm sorry, the path a little bit. If you look from the one on the left and you see how it kind of headed to the northwest and then hooked around, it looks like they've found 2 different points to build between that gets you up into the, you know, middle southern Michigan. But that one's now a solid line. So that means they've got what they believe is a pretty firm business case to put that line in the plan.
Well, that I think would be very vital for us. You look at consumers closing down a number of plants in the next several years, and with limited transmission in the state, with EVs picking up, we better have some interconnections here, or we're in serious trouble in the state of Michigan to be able to power our next 10, 20 plus years. So this would be good. Thank you.
That is one of the things that they're looking at, is because they always look at, when they're doing these transmission expansion plans, they have what they call our futures. So they have a kind of like a base case that just assumes that nothing's really going to change in the resource fleet mix. And then they try to create bookends, and they say, well, what if renewables become a huge percentage of the resource mix? And what if things kind of stay the same, but we get a ton of electrification, you know, all cars become electric, they don't go that far, but, and so that's what they're trying to find projects in this that show value under the most number of scenarios that they can get.
And I assume, Chris, they would be looking at a 345. They would go as big as possible, not smaller.
I will have to go back to the source document and pull that one, because they are looking at some higher voltage stuff, and I'm having trouble telling if that's the orange or the red.
I can't read it either.
Yeah. It's just a curiosity question.
Because they're looking at some 500 kV facilities. I think it's red, but I'll pull the source document and see if I can blow it up.
345, and looks like green is 765, Chris.
Yes. And then they have an orange that's the 500.
Right.
At least it's not like a 132 or something smaller than. 'cause
No, it's not a,
little bit beefy.
yeah, most of this stuff is gonna be big, 345 or up, and then we'll probably have supporting, around any of the termination points or the major substations they go through or switch yards. There's gonna be, ancillary stuff, so they probably will have some 138 build out in those local areas just to support the larger infrastructure.
Good. That's very promising. We've needed that for decades, so hopefully something happens.
I have one further question. With all the, not really for Chris, has AMP looked at what the cost of these changes are going to do to any of our power supply costs? Have they tried to estimate any of these things? Like if they change what would be our capacity requirement increases if they went to the seasonal construct versus the one time? Have we?
Yeah, I mean, as far as your capacity plans, what's included in there is, a third-party projection of what capacity is going to be in MISO at this point, which would take that into account. But we haven't developed our own forecast.
Okay, I'm just concerned because obviously we're a winter peaker.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden they start counting that in, that drastically would impact.
Yeah, I think now that we have these filings, we,
That's what I was wondering.
once we get through the 1,200 pages, I
Yeah.
think we can
Yeah.
analyze that.
Well, you haven't read them yet?
I haven't. Chris might have.
No, Chris hasn't.
Yeah.
He's only started.
He's only started.
Yeah, I'm just curious at what point, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying it should have been done, I'm saying.
No, I mean, yeah.
At some point, we're gonna have some idea, this is gonna be the impact to.
And I mean, these filings are gonna change too, but I think at least we have enough of the,
Yeah, I think it
what
has,
the rules might look like.
and it probably has a greater impact to Colware than anybody else, but with Marshall's growth and
Yeah.
Colware's changing seasonal, that
Right.
could drastically impact all of us.
Yes,
In an upward cost direction. Yeah, not
yes,
downward.
it's, yeah.
And then having a capacity issue like we had with when we disconnected from all the
When
other
they-
zones.
Zone 7,
Yeah,
yeah.
Because my January could be my third or fourth highest month. I
right.
mean, it can be up there, so we can have some high winter usage.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Could it be possible that we're long in some months versus other months when we get all this added together? You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, you could have more
So-
value in, some months.
That's gonna be the.
Because you guys are, I mean, as a group, you're a winter peaker because of cold water. So
Yeah,
But I think.
you could be at length in summer where it might be more expensive, it might have value to you,
I
actually.
mean, like cold water's gonna need more capacity in the winter than
Yeah.
what the rest of us are gonna need, and how this all unfolds is.
However, with
Marshall's
Marshall's,
gonna cost more money.
but Marshall is now more year-round and going up, and we will be as well. We got some other things working. So we, even with or without, Marshall, we may not have that going forward, so.
Yeah, we
I mean,
really
it's-
need to
Think through.
dive into better projections on a monthly basis for especially you two that are going to drive this. So.
Hey, Chris, it won't be us.
I know, we're set.
We make your life
Okay.
easy.
Thank you, Chris. Pam, other things?
I think that's it for the general manager's report, Tom. We do have some items in the action items, though.
Sure. Okay, let's move on to 7A, 22 board schedule. Do we need to adopt this, or is it just information? I can't
I
remember.
think you've adopted it in the past.
Okay,
I'll make a motion that we adopt the 2022 board schedule.
Hillsdale will second.
And I just picked the first Thursdays of the month, still 10 a.m., so that's what those are.
Just a curious question before we vote. January 6th, sometimes with all the holidays, that can give you guys enough time to get everything. Just with the holidays, it makes it very, we looked at ours, we moved ours back a week because there wasn't going to be enough staff to prepare anything for that next meeting.
okay, motion by Clinton, support by Hillsdale. All in favor of adoption of the board meeting schedule, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Katie. Have a good Christmas. Okay, 7B is the environmental schedule with Mppa. So Pam, if you would, please.
Yeah, in the past, you guys, a number of you have utilized MPPA to assist with environmental compliance services, and we just wanted to see if you wanted to continue that. We had Hillsdale and Marshall participating in this, and then they bill us, and then we bill them directly as a pass-through. So just wanted to confirm that before we go ahead and exercise this for another year.
And when you do that, they do my mayor's report. Would that call go in here?
Yeah,
Okay.
we should add Clinton to the mayor's report. Is that it? on
That's
yours?
all that I use Matt
Okay.
for.
All right,
He's done it for years and he's wonderful.
Okay, I'll get it revised and add that.
Thank
Do
you.
we
We may have to
contract them
add
directly?
Hillsdale under B as well. I'm not for sure why. I do
Okay,
the monthly race compliance, but then I wouldn't do the annual race report, so.
okay.
Jim, don't we go directly to MPPA?
Yeah.
Work with
Right, is that project 4?
I don't think so.
All right, so with those additions and changes,
Clinton will make a motion to approve the agreement with MPPA for environmental services, compliance, whatever.
I'll second.
that was Coldwater, seconding. Any other discussion on the agreement? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Coldwater peaking project update.
Scott, do you have any updates?
All right, say the latest is, as in the report, as of more fail-based, ISO still shows study delay until December 7th. We get nothing today. We usually update that schedule the first week of again. The study phase. Never really. The,
Scott or Pam, when will we as a board be making a decision? Because I need a chance to run whatever we're leaning towards by council first. So I just need to have time to get a meeting, and we don't like to call specials. We can, but we meet the first Monday as preferred. So we don't have to make anything this year is my key question, right? Or maybe?
I don't see you needing to make a decision until we have the MISO study back. But,
Good.
which unfortunately, we're gonna get it and we're gonna have 3 weeks to decide if we're gonna stay in or not.
Right.
So
But when you say stay in, we would still just pay the costs incurred.
yes,
So if we say, yeah, we're going forward, and
we go to the next phase of the,
we go next phase, but we get out early in the next phase, we don't pay for the whole entire study. We just, when we bail out.
pay for your costs.
pay
Yes.
incurred to date.
Through the
Right.
bailout.
So it's not like we're committing millions of dollars at this next phase.
Yeah, I'll have to get back on you what the next deposit is. Chris dropped off, but I can tell you what.
I
that
know
was.
there's a deposit, but I
Yeah.
think it's non-refundable, but I don't know if it's for the whole thing.
It is
or-
non-refundable, but I'll find out for
Okay.
you. So
My only question, and you sort of answered it, I probably should, with John and our power supply study.
I think you should be prepared to make your,
We need to
make
have a
your
special then, okay, I'll call
Yeah.
him. Because we'll just do a special in December.
I think it's gonna get delayed again because I can tell you that we got we get a summary of the charges off the deposit and it was like a couple $100 in November, so not a lot of work was done on it. So,
That was just typing in the delay.
yeah. Maybe, I know. So when I get that, I'm like, all right, this is getting delayed again.
But is it? But how can we make a decision in 3 weeks if we don't still have the numbers?
I mean, we've run the analysis, obviously, with the, we did a high case with 5 million in there. It still makes sense.
Any further discussion with MPPA?
Yeah, I was just gonna
Oh,
say.
sorry.
That's all right. I just actually got an email this morning from Steve, how do you say it?
Donkersloot.
Donkersloot.
Steve.
Yeah, Steve. Steve D. And they've reviewed the estimates and the T analysis. They had a couple questions, which I need to get back to them on. They wanted to know if our board would want a letter of interest from them, identifying how many megawatts they'd be interested in. I'm assuming that is what we would like. Okay.
Yeah. That changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah,
in this
and they were,
discussion.
I had talked to them about maybe 15 megawatts. I don't know if that still makes sense. That's assuming that only Hillsdale, Coldwater, and Clinton potentially were participating, so,
Yeah, 'cause that changes the whole dynamics.
yeah,
My discussion anyway. Then it reduces our risk and we're all in.
yeah.
That's very beneficial having them in.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that letter would be good.
okay, I'll let them know that that's what we would like, and if we could
And
get
again,
that.
it would be with each phase as we're doing it. It's not like they say today we're absolutely in, but if they're in
No,
with
but
each
if they're in
phase.
for 15 they're gonna start paying their share of that 15 megawatts, and
Yeah.
I guess the board will have to decide if they want to have them pay any of the back costs, but.
Just Bill Marshall.
Okay,
by
I'll let
me.
them know.
I know.
After February 25th.
Okay.
All
Anything
right.
else on Coldwater, Scott?
23.
I think that's it. Oh, well, we're gonna talk about the property later, so.
No other word on that other engine either. I didn't know.
Oh, we did have a call with them.
Have a call with the. For the money.
I would be surprised if anyone's in the unique situation we're in, where we're already this far in the queue for that technology, so.
True.
And they want to be able to move quickly, so.
Yeah.
All right,
Union City.
Union City, I've received, I think, copies of the withdrawal agreements. I've got Union City, I think I have yours, yeah. Do I have yours yet, Marsh? I don't think I have yours.
Tricia, did you send that to Pam?
I still need a signature from Joe.
Okay, I think after I have that, I have everybody's, so.
We'll get it tonight.
That's fine, okay.
He'll be in at 5.
And then I believe the board already gave me authorization to sign it, so I think we're good there.
Okay.
I guess one item came up that we need to discuss on Union City.
Yeah, do you have the cash
me-
reserve policy? I think one of the questions that came up was the general fund cash.
Yeah.
And I think there was an email between Chris and Pam about it, and I think it was worth a board discussion as far as, because I don't think it was talked about before. I don't think it was specifically called out in the withdrawal agreement. The cash would be, I guess, an asset, so it is referenced an asset in the withdrawal agreement, but I think probably would be up to the board as far as having a discussion on whether when Union City terminates their membership, any balances that they have, would those go with Union City or stay with the agency?
I don't know how the board feels. My 2 cents, just hearing it and having like 3 seconds to think about it, the money came from their ratepayers based on project 1, so I would assume it would go back to them, but I mean, it's up to the board. I
That was
assume-
the assumption that we were under too, and that's why I asked the question that it would be money that we put in and.
Well, my
we
preference is
assumed
it
it went
stays
with,
with
but we
me.
never, yeah, I know, right?
I don't think I'm gonna get
Yeah.
it, so.
Tim, do you want to scroll down?
All right.
There you go.
Right there?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think.
'cause you're looking at 293 roughly. No,
Yeah, was it 200, 201 maybe, I think?
291, 470. Yeah. 93 is your required, you're short 2. Yeah, so 291, 471.
I might have a different statement.
Is it the 201 that we're really talking about?
I thought, that's what I had initially, but I don't know where, I'm looking at two different things here.
So I think what's up on the screen is the cash allocation that we did for fiscal year end 6/30. And it shows on the bottom there, it shows the Union City's share of what is posted with MISO, cash collateral posted with MISO, the MISO Surety Fund, and then it shows the general fund and general fund allocated. And the general fund allocated, just to kind of, as a refresher, that's when members have made withdrawals from the agency in the past, equity withdrawals. And then there was a portion of funds that are not, cannot be allocated based on project one. So you kind of created a separate tranche, breaking those funds out, and those are tracked separately.
And that's
So-
why ours is shown at 0, because we're the one that made the request to draw it out.
Correct.
The MISO Surety Fund, that's cash that the agency has in their hands right now, or is that something that?
It's, the agency has at the end of 6/30/21, they had 2.13 posted.
So when we leave, there won't be that requirement to have the 85,000 in that fund then, right? Is that the way that works?
Assume we still have to keep it there.
You have to keep it there for a while, because I would assume that it's based upon you being here, so it wouldn't take like a year or so for that to clear, or the demand to go away, or whatever, but.
I wouldn't say that it's dollar for dollar, and with Union City leaving, I wouldn't, it's not necessarily accurate that your MISO collateral requirements are gonna go down by the 85,000.
It would take time, yeah.
That's also based on project one,
Right.
which you're, I think, 4%.
Yes.
And the MISO collateral posting for the agency, and you might only be 2.5% of the total load, so
It's not apples to apples.
it's not apples to apples.
So that seems like
But your collateral requirement should go down with Union City leaving.
but that's a gray area, it sounds like, or that one's a hard.
You have
one
no
to
idea
pin
what that's
down.
gonna be until it
Right.
happens. It's based on what the market is at that time,
Right.
so.
And it would take time, it's
Sounds like the
a late.
4537, just working on off these numbers, that seems like that's a no-brainer. The surety fund, though, that's not necessarily coming directly from their ratepayers, because that was probably out of reserves at the agency.
The 201,550 we're talking about? or the-
I'm talking about the 85, right, I'm just starting with the 85 through 81, and I am not giving you $3, so I.
I think you already got it.
Oh, darn.
My initial thing was, I thought it was the 201,550, I forgot about the 54537, that's what I had talked to our council about, was that 205. I really didn't, the MISO Surety Fund wasn't anything that I was even aware of, or what that, so, and I understand that's a different animal that may not have an exact figure pinned to it, so I'm not arguing that one at all, really.
So I would seek a motion from the board to, how would you like that worded, Tom? I guess
I think it should be Union City's share well, I'm assuming this is your motion. So Union City's share of the general fund and the general fund allocated in the cash reserve policy as of June 1st, 2022.
Because this isn't gonna happen until they actually leave.
Right.
Right.
And it's gonna change.
And I would say that Clinton's prepared to make that motion with one other provided. It's provided that the withdrawal agreement is fully enacted or something, because if things change between now and then, it's like, no, you need to leave it here. But if the withdrawal agreement is fully activated, then what Pam said. And I can make a motion to that effect if the board's okay with it.
I'm good with that.
Clinton will make the motion then. I'll need a little help, but this is for Tricia, provided that Union City and the agency finalize the Union City withdrawal agreement, comma. Pam, can you say your words?
That the Union City's share of the general fund and general fund allocated amounts in the cash reserve policy as of June 1st, 2022
Would be refunded
will
to
be
Union
refunded to
City.
Union City.
That was my motion, unless I need help amending it to make someone comfortable.
Hillsdale will second that.
June 1st or June 30th?
Oh,
The withdrawal agreement is June 1st, 2022. So do you want May 31st, 2022?
June 1st is fine.
now,
Okay.
Yeah.
before we get support on the motion, we've got a June 1st or whatever, June 30th, whatever we finalize. Would it be better that it's the effective date of the withdrawal? Because what if it switches by 4 months? I mean, granted, we
That's
just
fine.
remake the
Yeah, I
motion.
think that's good. Yeah.
But that way, if there's a moving target ahead or behind, we're not stuck on a date, we're just on. So as opposed to the June 1st of 2022, it'd be as of the effective date in 22.
All right, Tricia. Can
I
you
know,
read
sorry.
back all that, what you've heard from everybody?
Sorry.
This is pressure because I was gonna craft it. I'm not sure I can. I've got pieces of it, okay? So I have provided the withdrawal agreement is fully activated. Union City would receive their share of the general fund and general fund allocated funds as of the effective date of the withdrawal agreement in 22 per the cash reserve policy.
Perfect.
Good.
That's great, Tricia. You only
Thank
have
you.
you only have 2 more meetings after this one to worry about doing these motions, so, but,
I didn't
okay.
even have a lot of commas in
All
there.
right, we do have a motion and Hillsdale still supportive. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Tricia. Okay, Finance Committee representatives. I think Kevin, I think asked to put that on.
Oh, yes, I forgot all about that. I think that we need to look at amending the board's finance committee people. I believe it's Jeff and myself. And we probably should amend it, and sorry, but someone else should probably pick up for mine, or I mean for Jeff. I tried. So in other words, Dave.
Wait a minute.
A lot of options here.
I know,
Yeah.
a lot of options, exactly. Well, yeah,
That's
but
nice to say today.
I know, I don't mean to put extra workload, because you do have to run through all that stuff, but it wouldn't be.
You can make it Jim too.
With Chris, oh, we could do Jim then, that's fine. So the two of you get to decide who wants it, or who.
Or you can leave it as the
wants it
alternate for
least.
co-op, wherever it ends up being.
Right. I would prefer that.
Okay, Dave's got his hand full with problems in Hillsdale, and everything's going smoothly in Coldwater.
Just leave it to cold water then.
Well, also, come your March meeting, Dave will be moving into the chair at that point, so you want to take care of it now, and or you want to backdate it to Kevin.
Well, I think what we could do is let's finish this motion, and then we can bring that up if you want to talk, see what the board's comfortable with. But I'd rather just close this motion out first. But I like
We
the
need
idea.
to just do the finance committee, so I'm hearing Kevin making a motion
Clinton,
to
yes.
appoint himself.
I want to be off it, but I'm stuck.
And Jim, or
Just make the co-op.
Coldwater representative of the finance committee. You okay with
And-
that?
And when we do that, I think what we really should do is, sorry, but Jim should start getting those, just to make it easier, because you're at,
No, he would get them.
okay.
So it's effective immediately then, what we're saying?
It'd be nice. It's just easier because, Jeff's got his handfuls with 2 full-time jobs and not like one's not enough.
Finally working. So the motion is that Clinton and Coldwater representatives be the finance committee immediately.
And Clinton made that motion.
I'll support.
Okay.
Or Union City will support.
Yeah. All right, I'll I'm assuming, Tricia, you haven't said anything, so you must be okay on this. So all in favor of that motion, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Now, to your comment, do you want to talk about February or March
No,
now?
not yet.
Okay,
I don't know. They may not be able to hire somebody. I don't know.
okay.
We'll see tonight.
Oh,
Okay, we're on to 7F, the retention bonuses. I'm not sure who wants to start
I'll
talking
let
about
Kevin
them.
talk about it.
well, I can, I don't know who asked to put on the agenda because I didn't, but I guess I remember that when we looked at doing something, we had a lower cost power supply to close the agency down, meaning the Endicott power plant. So, we pursued that. We were then very concerned because we wanted to close it in a year, and we were concerned about keeping employees. And so my memory tells me, and I'm not saying I'm correct, but my memory tells me that what we decided is that in order to encourage people to stay and not look for a new job because they were going to lose their jobs at the closing of the plant, which was going to be the end of May, that we would give them a retention bonus. I think it was a week for every year of service if they worked through the time of the closing. And then when we had some final closeout things of the plant, so it might have been a month later, but if they did, and then we laid them off, we would give them a retention bonus. And that's sort of how I remember the whole thing going down. And so while I like the two people, we're at a public meeting, so but not mentioning names, but while we like the two individuals, one of them retired and the other took a full-time job somewhere. And so it's just harder for me to be supportive of it when they were not actually laid off. And that's where I have a harder time with it.
And we did do research in the minutes to try to find if there was an official motion, and it could not be found, by the agency, that the official language of that motion.
And Kevin, I remember similar, there were several people who were not going to be laid off, who continued working. They were, it was basically is that we asked people to stick around for as long as possible to keep the plant running, and then because they were losing their jobs.
And I know there were maybe 5 people that hung around, and subsequently there were 2 people, again, not mentioning names, but there were 2 people who were ultimately laid off when we were here in Coldwater. And then they were given it, I understand. I was not aware of it, but I'm told subsequently they were given it. And it sort of makes sense because they were laid off, but that's just my thought. It's hard for me. I like the 2 individuals, but again, one retired and one took a new job. They were not laid off by us. And that's where I'm just having a hard time with it.
I've always, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Chris.
And just want to follow up with that and state that I did receive another job in Hillsdale and received it, and Mike Sproul also retired and did receive it as well. So I just wanted to add that 2 cents.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I always have supported that. I think, I think in essence, we punish those 2 for staying with us, and we've discussed it. I made a motion a year or so ago to do that, and I still support that. And I think it's just something we ought to take a vote. We've discussed it for a year or so and be done with it. And that's my kind of thought. We've discussed it and researched the minutes and looked into it, but I think others have received it and have always
Chris,
supported them too.
I do agree with you that we need to memorialize this in the minutes. Whatever the vote's going to be, is that it's, we have it there for future. So I think
And so if we can just get it to the floor for a vote, and I would make a motion that we pay those 2, or I don't know what the exact wording would be, but in the affirmative for the retention bonuses for those 2 employees.
I think for the record, I think we have to have their names in the
It
motion.
would be Harold and Bob.
Russell and Jenkins.
Bob Russell and
thank
Harold
you.
Jenkins.
Yes.
Okay. I think we need to do that to memorialize whatever the vote's going to be.
I think I would make that motion to support the retention bonuses for Harold Jenkins and Bob Russell. And
I'm gonna support the motion. Jim?
If you don't mind, you know, to speak to Kevin's shared opinion, the one employee that stayed and ultimately took a new job, I assume his job at the agency was going to end. So he took a new job, so he would have been ultimately laid off or let go from the agency. And that's not saying that in the year or year and a half or 2 years prior, that he wouldn't have sought employment elsewhere during that time, other than he was staying to receive that retention bonus as well. So,
Good points.
I originally was not in favor of this just because I thought it was a severance. Well, they didn't lose their job, but then getting over my bullheadedness that, this was more of the retention. They could have left at any time, but they didn't. If Bob would have left in the middle of that, what would have happened? Or if he would have said, hey, guys, I'm done, I'm leaving. That's why you pay retention bonuses, because if he'd have said, no, plant's closing, I got a job tomorrow, that we paid him, we gave him that bonus. But I do think, Pam, did you run the numbers on what the amount might be? Just those numbers. I know what the numbers were that they count, but you said it should be
No.
as of the date of the
Yeah,
plant
well, I'm just,
closing, right?
the research that we did, it appears that that the people that receive this retention bonus, even if it was after 2016, the calculation was based on their years of service up to June 30th of 2016.
Yes. So they don't get additional
I have
time.
not run that.
Yeah, no. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. I'll support the motion.
So what
Go
was
on.
the total amount? I've never seen an actual.
I should have it. Just a second. Give me 2 seconds. I will get it. I had it.
I think that calculation was based
Oh,
on up
this
till
is
they
a-
left, so it's gonna be less.
Correct.
Assuming you follow that same
Yeah.
methodology.
Almost there.
Oh, no problem.
Pull this up so I can just read it. So the total payout, this is more than it should be because we got to back off some years because I was given numbers that included years up through almost like today. So we'd have to take 5 years off that. So then the max it would be $63,000. But that's, fraction of that. So let's see, Bob's 16 minus 410. Yeah, his would be a little bit, I'm ballparking it. It's less than 50, probably more than 40, less than 50 for both of them. What the payout was.
The count combined for both of them, 40 to 50,
40 to 50.
right? Ballpark.
Yeah, ballpark. Where they are.
Okay. Any other discussion? However this vote goes, we appreciate their service that they gave to the agency, and I am going to ask for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Bud,
Tricia, are you still there?
yeah, I didn't hear
Oh, it
anything.
says our internet.
Hold on. Tricia, we only heard you called Commissioner Bud's name.
That's all I said. So Commissioner Bud,
Yes.
Cornish,
No.
Mackey,
No.
Mathis,
Yes.
and Tarkowitz.
No.
Motion defeated.
All right. Tough subject, so thank you. We have it now memorialized. I would like to skip G and H because the closed session or GH is, can
As a
I,
property purchase.
and that can be closed session, I believe, Michigan is purchases, but sales can't. Okay. All right, I'd like to go down to J, budget adjustment. Thank you for whoever's adding this to the agenda. My screen changes, so.
Yeah.
So, Tom?
I have a request for a budget revision for the fiscal year, the audit that was just completed by Baker Tilly. Excuse me. I received their final invoice, and it had an additional charge of $2,500 in excess of the fixed cost that we agreed upon, which was $18,500. So I guess just a little history. The audit report, or I guess the agency has relied upon Baker Tilly in the past to do a lot of the footnotes and the audit and the GASB entry. This last year, staff, Mark McGuire, the accountant at AMP, and myself, we worked with Baker Tilly to do the footnotes and the GASB 68 entry ourselves. Because in the past, the agency always relied upon Baker Tilly, there was always a material weakness comment in the management report. So when staff did it this year ourselves, we were able to get the comment removed, but there was an additional charge for out-of-scope services for the transition of working with Baker Tilly to do a couple of these things. So Baker Tilly worked with us on the workbook for the GASB 68 entry and a couple of things that go into preparing the footnotes. I did call the manager at Baker Tilly because the first I found out about it was when we got that final invoice. She did apologize that it wasn't communicated earlier. I'm not questioning whether some additional services were provided. She said it was about 10 hours. One thing we did talk about, because they did provide some services, was splitting that additional fee. So my recommendation and what I'd be asking the board is for a budget revision and to pay Baker Tilly an additional $1,250 for their audit services. They would absorb half that as well. And that was just the transition for this year to help us through a couple of those services. I don't anticipate there'll be any out of scope work needed in future years. So, but the good news is the material weakness comment that was previously in your audit, the manager's letter is no longer in there. So,
Quarter will move for the budget amendment.
Union City will support.
And Clinton will thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
thank you.
All right, let's move on to other business and public comments. Seeing no public comments. Municipality updates. Coldwater.
Sure. Real quick, I know maybe we forgot. So do we want to keep this live streaming next time? Because it just gets posted on YouTube, yes or no? I mean, it's not a big deal. Totally up to you
I
guys.
don't see any need for, how many views does it get besides just?
us trying to
Just
figure out
us.
the minutes. It's
Right.
probably
I
not.
mean, Don does use it to write his articles, correct, Don, from time to time? Well, if you weren't here, you could go and view that. So that's the only benefit. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care.
We had never done it previously. I don't see any need for
Okay.
it myself. That's just me. I don't.
Okay. No problem. So I'm going to tell we're not doing it going forward. Okay. We did do this meeting. So Coldwater, everything's pretty much, we're hitting our lull period before we start our projects again. Our fiber project continues to do over very well. So that's the biggest problem we got going on. Jim, anything to add?
We're, thanks for AM's help, we got engines 1 and 3 passed for our emissions permit. Engine number 2 had some mechanical issues. We're waiting for parts to get those fixed. They're on site this week trying to work on that, and hopefully by the end of the month we'll have engine 2 online and tested and passed. Other than that,
But one thing that might be of interest, we are doing some new high-speed reclosers. So might want to check with Jim for the success. They're being commissioned tomorrow, I believe,
yeah, today.
today.
Who was the vendor?
Siemens.
I
Yeah.
just talked to him yesterday, or we had a presentation the day before yesterday, probably on the similar, if not the exact one. So certainly something we want to look at for our industrial park area potentially. So we'll be in contact.
Yeah, we installed them at a customer's facility. Had 2 circuits past their facility, so we, couple of reclosers and tied their feed to 1. Critical load customer, so I think they're saying within 100 milliseconds, and then they're telling us after that claim, more likely 25 to 35. It's really quick, but
And just so everybody knows my position, so I have started with Second Suite Voltec. So that's where I am majority of the day. I'm still working about 17 hours a week here. However, that time is starting to dwindle. I will, now it looks like I might be at no more than 2 more meetings, but so I may be here in January, but otherwise, but my time is, I'll be here only covering meetings and not really in the office, just in case anybody's wondering, but still available at any time, so. Public?
Here to answer a question. How many views do you get? You get, the lowest we got is 11. Most I saw was about 50. Average is 34.
Thank you, Pat.
Pat?
Pretty answer.
So, does that change anybody's opinion? The people are watching it, for whatever reason.
how long they're watching it. I don't know.
No, okay. Yep, we'll kill it.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right. Clinton?
We took bids for our substation and the transformer, and we were anticipating it could be significantly over our cost estimate. And I know it sounds bad, but we were pleased it was only 9.7% higher than we had budgeted, so that's a good thing. We look to award that on Monday night, and then just continuing with the design and ordering some key long delay products. Oh, and it was interesting too, because this was a 24 or 26 week lead time, which was not bad because a couple of them were 104 week. So that was very, very good. We were happy
Can I ask
with
what your
it.
bid was or what it was?
Virginia.
I mean, what the amount was?
Oh,
Just curious.
719, and we were
Okay.
650 in the ballpark.
For a 10?
Yes,
Megawatt.
10 MBA. So we were pleased with that. That was good. Just normal fall kind of things going on other than that.
But lead times are going up
24
for
to
everything.
28
Like
weeks.
transformers are now looking at 70 weeks. So if you got a business needs a new transformer, they could
Significant.
have to wait almost 2 years before they,
We had a quote for a meter socket, 70 weeks.
meter socket.
Meter socket.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I don't know how we're gonna get things built or how new businesses are gonna start, so without being able to get wire and all the rest.
And new EVs and all that stuff. Holy cow.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Keep going.
Not yet.
Okay. Hillsdale?
Just starting design work on next year's infrastructure projects. Finished up a taxiway extension at our airport. And just wrapping up our theater project, which should be done sometime later this month. I'll let Chris talk about what he's got going on.
Yeah, so update, I updated last time, we did lose one lineman. And then his replacement actually left last week, so now I'm down a lineman and an apprentice. We're gonna look at attempting to hire a lineman. We'll see how this goes. Probably not well, but if not, we're also gonna add another apprentice on. He started in school, so.
Would you be willing to share where they went to?
Well, our Chad went to Ham. He's our circuit rider.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I received a call afterwards, which was fine. It was very fun. And he was open and upfront and stayed through. And we kind of planned on it. He was supposed to be leaving in a year and a half anyhow. So
I was told he'd already retired.
yeah. And actually, our apprentice went to Midwest. Started out there at $50.04 an hour, is my understanding. So a little hard to compete. But
As an apprentice.
yeah, he doesn't even have his hours in yet. He's done with school, but doesn't have his hours. Oops. So. Either way, yeah, just working. Tree trimming is ongoing. We're kind of focused on that right now, and we put up Christmas decoration.
Community service.
Ho ho.
Union City.
The exciting thing we have, our substation is live and our new substation is going, so we're under that. And we put new lights on our dam. We put a lighting system on our dam for our waterfalls. It looks very nice now. So really all I got. We did our Christmas decorations as well. And that's it.
Kevin, for us?
You got the big news.
No, I'll get that. No, you can take care of the electric stuff.
Okay. Well, I guess we're working on a lot of things related to the hydro plant right now. We've got to get our emergency action plan revised and submitted by the end of the month. The number 1 unit went down with some, stressed bolts on one of the bearings there. And we had to have them machined because they weren't available off the shelf, as you might think, with a wooden bearing in there. But we're also having a firm come in and take a look at Unit 3. It's the smaller of the two that we have. It's been offline since 2017, 2018, something like that. Our staff seemed to think that it wouldn't take a lot to get it operating again, so we're going to see what that cost comes in at, and if it makes financial sense, then we'll have that back there generating a little bit, helping offset some of that 6.5 cent power from MISO that we've been looking at. And doing some circuit conversions, still chipping away at that. We've got a lot of 4 kV distribution there in Marshall, and trying to keep working on not only converting that to 12,470, but trying to offload some of our more heavily loaded substation transformers and get that transferred to some other transformers that are not as heavily loaded. So those are probably the biggest things, I guess, for electric.
Yeah. Tonight, council's going to shortlist from the 25 applicants for my job. Hopefully get down to 3 to 5 to interview. Probably interviews would be the 11th or 18th of this month. We'll see how that goes tonight. And I've been spending majority of my job on our mega site project, which is taking me all over the place. So that's would be interesting if we were to land a company. But we're doing our best. Beyond that, I can't think of anything. So at this time,
Can I ask a quick question? Has anybody ever done like taken their tariffs and had a legal review or hired a firm to have somebody review their tariffs at all? No? Okay, thanks.
Ours looks very similar to the wording that is in Consumers Energy.
Yeah, ours looks like 1970s typewriter print, and we make modifications to it, and I just want to make sure, just trying to think if anybody's ever used and it just popped in my mind when you said that. Okay, thanks.
We used, I don't know if it's Miller Canfield or Plunkett Cooney, but with an ordinance in how we do the rates, we've got some legal changes we did several years ago because of one of the cases that was out. So we did something like that, which set the criteria by which, you'll have a service charge, which is blank, and you'll have and water sewer also in it. So we did stuff like that. I don't remember what law it was, but there was something 5 to 7 years ago, and we responded with adjusting our ordinance with that to help us, but.
That's the Bolt case, so, but, yeah, we were trying to think like how extensions and more how we bill for extensions, especially now with rising costs going like this, that we can't charge it. Just want to make sure we're within the parameters. I'm good, thank you.
Because was it at MML or MMEA, there's an article about a community got sued with the rates and overcharges, and I don't remember if it was water and or electric. I forgot what it's reading.
It's usually charged to stormwater and how they're billing it, and it's usually, the Bolt case is what they're doing is there's one firm that specializes in suing municipalities just for that reason. They have to justify the charges that they're putting on there, so.
Well, they were good at it because it was like 290 million was the overcharge.
Yeah.
But then it went to the court and got overturned,
Yeah.
and that was appealed and it was upheld.
All right, I'll seek a motion to go into closed session.
So moved. Coldwater.
Second, Hillsdale.
Tricia, will you call the roll?
Member Bud,
Yes.
Member Cornish,
Yes.
Member Mackey,
Yes.
Member Mathis,
Yes.
and Member Tarkowitz.
Yes, and we'll
And
take
I
a 5-minute break.
I was gonna say, I probably won't be, the closed sessions don't have anything to do with me, so if nobody has any large objection, I'll probably leave their
I do.
capacity, and Sue, you have a.
I'm opposed to you leaving.
Okay, so just, Tricia.